Hello and welcome back to the Fit You podcast. My name is Dakota Phillips. I'm the owner of Fit You Coaching, and my goal is to help you reach your fitness goals through fun and sustainable ways. And I'm here with my new co-host, Savannah Phillips, and today we're going to be going over setting goals. So we're going to be talking about short-term, long-term goals, finding your why for those goals, and having some accountability.
All right.
So starting off, we're going to start with our short-term goals. For those, we want those to be really specific. We want to have those be realistic and something achievable. And something like the name states, like short-term would be maybe a month to maybe 6 months would be about as long of a short-term goal. But then you're going to build on those and you'll have longer short-term goals too. So, but for this category, we're going to just talk mainly about something that you can achieve within the next few months, something that you can kind of build towards easily. So maybe let's say your goal is going to be something weight loss related, and we'll talk more about that later. But if your goal is something weight loss related, you can make those short-term goals week by week, where each week your goal is to lose 1 pound. That's something sustainable, that's something achievable, and it's something that you can track. You want it to be something specific that is measurable. It's really hard to make your goal something like, I want to have more fun, although that maybe is a better long-term, or like maybe that's a why. But that's kind of a hard thing to track of, like, how much fun did you have? I had 3 fun today. So you want it to be something like, I got on the scale, it said 1 pound less than last week. Check the box.
I'm getting real SMART goal vibes from our short-term goals. I don't know how many people remember that from I want to say like middle school, elementary school, middle school. They would teach us the SMART goals, like be specific and measurable and attainable and all those things. So it's like those are the short-term goals, or just the really like straightforward kind of transactional things where you're looking for a specific outcome.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. So yeah, as cliche as that sounds, that is one of the best ways to make sure that you're achieving those goals. Because like we mentioned in our last podcast, it's really important to be able to see your progress over time, and having those measurable goals is something that makes it a lot easier for you to look back yourself and say, 2 months ago, I weighed this, now I weigh that. Or maybe your goal is to get stronger. So your goal is to add X amount of pounds to whatever lift you're trying to get stronger at. And you can look back and say, I was only squatting 80 pounds last week. Now I'm squatting 85 pounds this week. So it's something that you can see progress in. You can make graphs and charts if you're really into that, but just something that you know that I'm better today than I was when I started this goal. But then that leads into the long-term goals. And those longer-term goals, I like to make those a little bit more kind of like what your big dreams are, and what all of your smaller goals are going to be the culmination of. So sometimes it's easier to start with your bigger goals, because then you can work backwards, making smaller goals to get you to that bigger goal. So like, let's say your goal is to be able to run a marathon in 2 years, or maybe even like run a marathon. I don't know what good marathon times are, but 5 hours is maybe a good marathon time. Maybe, I don't know. We'll use that as an example. But say your goal is to, in 2 years, run a marathon in under 5 hours. And then from there, you can work back to maybe your 1 year goal. If you're trying to get there in 2 years, your 1 year goal is to be able to complete a marathon. Maybe you've never done a marathon before. You've just been doing 5Ks, but you want to start running a longer distance. So now your 1 year goal is to run a marathon. From there, you can work backwards again. Maybe your goal is to run X amount of miles in the year. Something like that you can measure up to. It's your smaller goals building into your big long-term goal.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And it's still something measurable. So we've got that end goal of we want to do it in a certain amount of time and it's a certain distance. So same rules apply to those short-term and long-term goals. We don't want to have it be something so abstract that it's hard to know when we hit that target. And then it's harder to work backwards if that target is abstract. So then the same thing would apply to, like, in 2 years or in 10 years, I want to do something. Work your way backwards. Those smaller goals may not be so exact if you're working in such long term, because say your goal is in 10 years, I want to do Mount Everest or something like that, where your day to day is going to be more abstract in year 9, but you can work back like in 10 years, I want to do this. So then by year 5, I need to be here. And you can kind of work back in years until you get closer to within your year to have your smaller goals.
So like if 10 years is Mount Everest, you can kind of like space out a bunch of smaller mountains in the meantime as like your short-term goals is to...
Right.
It's like practice, but also a goal in itself to still climb a mountain, even if it's not Mount Everest.
Exactly. Yes. And then to build on top of even your long-term goals, to be able to reach those long-term goals, because like we said, maybe those long-term goals are 10 years down the road, it's important to have a solid why for why you're doing that long-term goal. So this will bring me back to weight loss. And I think that's a pretty common goal that a lot of people have, especially I'm a fitness coach. So that's something I hear a lot. They say, I want to lose 50 pounds by next summer or something like that. Where if you kind of break down the goal and you ask the questions of like, why do you want to do that specific goal? Usually you can kind of peel back the layers and find a different goal that's maybe not weight loss related, because their why is maybe they want to be able to play with their kids or grandkids a little bit easier, get down to the floor, get back up, run around without getting tired. And they just kind of have this idea of, I want to lose 50 pounds, and weight loss might not be that specific goal, but being able to move more freely and play with the kids is more of their real overarching goal, and their why. So
I feel like we also have family members that like, as they're coming up on retirement, they might have that kind of goal where they're like, I want to lose weight, or like, I want to be able to go hiking more, and they're like, that's why I want to lose weight. And then you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, you're not just like all of a sudden like, I want to weigh less. Like, there's usually a deeper reason to it, and that's like that why is like when you're coming up on retirement and you're like, I get to travel now, and then you're like, oh man, like I want to travel, but like there's lots of things I want to do when I go travel, and like I can't do that with the state that I'm in right now. And that's when people, that's kind of like the backtracking that you're talking about, where you like find that bigger reason, and then weight loss no longer becomes like your why. It becomes one of those short-term goals that's a part of your long-term goal to enjoy traveling in retirement or something like that.
And that's a good point, that it's a part of your long-term goal, because like if your goal is to be able to hike more in retirement, and you think, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds because hiking 10 pounds lighter is going to make hiking a little bit easier. If you're only focused on, I just want to lose the 10 pounds and then hike, but then you're not really thinking about like, oh, I should also be doing things that are going to make the hike itself, the physical activity of doing that, a little bit more easier, more enjoyable. So I'm not just like on that hike huffing and puffing the whole way. Maybe you also want to set up some other short-term goals of, maybe you want to build your cardio up a little bit more. You want to build your leg strength. You want to be able to carry a backpack with you as you go on that hike.
A short-term goal could be, I want to be able to do 40 minutes on the Stairmaster.
Exactly. And where maybe that would have been a part of your weight loss, depending on how you were losing weight, if you were just doing it diet-wise or if you were doing exercise. But then having that why to kind of guide all of your short-term goals can kind of open the door to more of those short-term goals, so that when you get to your overarching why, you've completed more of those tasks rather than you get there and you're like, well, I weighed 10 pounds less. Why am I still huffing and puffing? Well, maybe because you never did any sort of like longer hikes to build up to your hikes that you're trying to do now around national parks or things like that. So you want to make sure that you're kind of checking all of those boxes, where if you just kind of went surface level, you may get to your goal and be like, wow, I actually still have a lot of work to do, even though I should be ready for this.
Well, I also kind of see it as like most people don't reach their goal when it's not very clear to them why they're doing it. Because you're like, oh yeah, they'll lose the weight and then they'll like struggle to hike. Well, I think if they don't understand their full purpose for why they're trying to lose that weight, but I mean, I cannot just walk into a gym and be like, I'm trying to lose 10 pounds and then just like randomly pick stuff to go do, or like be at home and be like, I need to lose 10 pounds. What should I buy for groceries? Like, when you have that longer goal in mind as well with your short-term goals, and you have that why in mind and have it guiding your decisions, I think it makes the path a lot clearer, and it just makes it easier to stick to your goals.
For sure, 100%. Because, I mean, you're going to have that motivation at the beginning. You're going to be like, oh, here we go. I'm going to do these things because I want to get this goal. But without that why, once that motivation wears off, it's going to be a little bit harder to get you to continue doing those habits that you're trying to form, because your surface level goal that you haven't fully constructed yet can kind of start to fall apart and be like, well, it's not that big a deal if I lose 10 pounds or whatever your goal is. But with that why, like you said, it's going to really strengthen your willpower to want to continue, because you're like, this is the big thing that I'm reaching for because I really want X, Y, and Z to happen.
So with that, for the people that might be listening to this and already have this big goal in their head, and then when you're asking them, what's your why? Like, why are you doing this? Why do you want to make all these changes? What advice do you have for the people who are really struggling to answer that question, or they answer it and they're like, that's just kind of weak. That's not a very strong why. What do you suggest for them?
Yeah, so I would definitely suggest looking at your goals and making sure that you've got the reasons for what your goals are. And then if maybe you've decided or you discover that you have this goal but you don't know why, you can, just knowing that you need to ask yourself that can kind of determine how important that goal is to you. And maybe you need to shift your focus and change directions, or this can give you that opportunity to discover what that why is, realize why you're reaching those goals or trying to reach those goals, and kind of build yourself up and solidify what you're reaching towards.
So like, see whether you just need to be more self-reflective and give yourself that extra motivation by digging deeper, or maybe you're going to dig deep and you're going to find out, I really just need to change this goal. Like, why am I even going for this? I don't have a good enough why. I should focus on something that I feel far more strong about.
Exactly. And it's all your goals. So your goals can always change. I think even when you're changing your goals, you kind of want to ask that question of, why am I wanting to change this goal? Am I wanting to change this goal just because I've reached a point and it's getting more challenging? I'm having to maybe work a little bit harder at this goal. I hit a plateau, something like that, where are you quitting because of the challenge, or are you quitting because you've discovered that maybe you have a new passion, maybe your reasons for your goal have changed. And that's totally fine, because the goals should fit you. See what I did there? Fit you? Okay. But they should fit you, and they should be something that's going to actually lead you to the joy of fulfilling your goal, because just putting your head down and getting to the end of your goal because you said you're going to do whatever you said you're going to do is great. But if after you finish it and it's not what you actually wanted, it's not going to be very fulfilling. Yes, you checked the boxes, but you're not necessarily happy after you've checked that last box. You want that last box to be checked and you to feel like you've accomplished everything you wanted to, and you're in a happier, healthier place.
Yeah, so that definitely speaks to like the strength of the why.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're kind of getting at the like it's the journey, not just the destination too. So
Exactly.
if you can't come up with a good why, it's probably because you don't even want to be on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
You just gave yourself something to work towards, and you can pick something that's going to mean a lot more to you. But there's something you said in there of like you just said you're going to do it, so now you feel like you have to do it. I think that's a great segue into accountability,
Mm-hmm.
because that's definitely something that you have shown me that I know I was doing all wrong for a long time in my goal setting. Was like they say, you know, share with other people, it'll keep you on track. And I always saw that as like, you need to tell other people, because then if you don't do it, you're going to feel guilty because you told people, and you don't want to be like ashamed or embarrassed. So that's going to keep you on track. And that's so terrible and so
Mm-hmm.
negative. And that's what I thought accountability was supposed to be.
Right. And what accountability should be is more so you tell your friends and family, like, hey, this is my goal. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be able to, whatever it is, become more healthy. And then they can either help you achieve those goals, or I think about it kind of like if you tell your friends your goal is to, we'll go with the weight loss, like lose 10 pounds by a certain day, then maybe they can help you be like, hey, we're going to do like a get together and cook a healthy meal or something like that, rather than, hey, let's go out to the local burger joint and get burgers and shakes or something like that, where you know that's not going to get you towards your goal. Not that you shouldn't be enjoying your life and doing fun things, but that'll get them to not guilt you into like, oh, come on and do this thing that'll not get you towards your goal. They can maybe be more supportive of what you're trying to do, kind of ask you how you're doing even on that journey of like, oh, hey, how has your workouts been going? Or
So
have you tried any new good recipes? Things like that.
Yeah. So it's to build a supportive environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big piece of that for me is like when you say, like, when people ask you, how are you doing? That's the part where like I feel the worry about, you know, the shame and the guilt. Like, oh my gosh, what if I'm like not far enough along, or if I haven't made progress since the last time they asked? Well, that's how progress works. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a straight line. It's not perfect growth. It's super incremental and consistent. It's a little all over the place. And that's why you should tell your goals to people that you trust and that you care about, and you know they care about you, because you need that vulnerability in order to have that accountability. You need to be able to say, man, I haven't made any progress since the last time we talked, or oh my gosh, I've gone back a couple steps. I think it's this or that in my life that is making this harder. And to be able to voice those things and to hear back then from those friends and get that extra motivation and that support to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about always being able to tell them that you've made progress and that you're doing okay and that you're on your way to your goals. Like, it's so that you can rely on them from time to time for that extra motivation.
Exactly. And even when they ask you how are your goals going, and you say actually they've changed, like you said, that's
Good
not
point.
something to guilt you into doing something that you don't want to do. Because I mean, when I first met you, like all through high school, all through college, I told everybody that I met that I wanted to open up my own gym, because that was something I was really passionate about. I wanted to have that and that like be my career. And then since college, I've shifted that goal, even though I told everyone that that's what I wanted to do. Now I've started Fit You and do more of the online coaching, because I want that freedom to be able to go visit family, go visit people all over the country, be able to travel, see new things, where I feel like a gym would maybe keep me locked down in one spot.
And you want to be able to reach more people.
Exactly. So my goals shifted over time, and now I tell people about those new goals. And I really have never told anybody, hey, I wanted to open up a gym, and now I've shifted to this is my new goal. And they say, oh, well, you said you were going to do this, so what is going on here? You're just not going to follow through with your word? Because they understand that goals can change, and that's just kind of how that works. I still have good goals, and they understand that. Nobody's guilted me into owning my own gym. So that works for all of you out there too, where if you have a goal, and you want to shift that goal, don't feel the guilt and pressure of, oh, I said I was going to run a marathon in under 5 hours. Maybe you no longer want to run a marathon. Maybe you've shifted your why. You've got new goals. Some big life event happens, and now you've got a new goal. So you can still feel free to share that with other people and say, this is what changed, and now this is my goal. It's not set in stone.
Yeah. This is definitely like a pretty condensed overview of goal setting. But I know you do this a lot more in depth with the people that you get to personal coach. So do you kind of want to give a little detail on that?
Yeah, definitely. So with any of the one-on-one coaching that I do, I like to sit down towards the very beginning of our coaching. Like I'll kind of get your initial goals. We'll talk about those, and then we'll have like a 30-minute Zoom call where we really dive deep into your goals, set them out kind of like we talked about, where maybe we start with those big goals and we work backwards and see what workouts do we need to be doing now that are going to get us to those goals. And then I'll also add in some of those mindset pieces too, to kind of get your mind wrapped around the idea of like, I don't have to be guilted into these goals. I can be doing these goals for the reasons I want to do. And kind of working on how you're talking to yourself about those goals. Because your goals should never be like, I want to lose 10 pounds because I'm a lazy piece of crap. Because that's a really rough way to talk to yourself. We're going to work through those goals, peel back the layers, and get you excited about your goals and excited about what you're going to be doing and having fun reaching those goals. So yeah,
because like you said, it's about the journey and not the destination.
Exactly, because you don't want to get to the destination and be like, wow, that really sucked to get here, because you're probably only going to be at that destination at that time.
And then you're going to be trying to set a new goal. So
exactly.
Why just suffer, achieve, be happy for 30 seconds before you're thinking about that next goal and then start the cycle again? That's awful.
Exactly. You want to be enjoying getting to all of your goals, because that's where almost all of your time is going to be, is in the journey towards your goal. Because like you said, then you're going to set a new goal, a new journey, and that journey should also be enjoyable. So that's something we like to talk about and make sure that we're kind of on the same page of, this is going to be fun. Communicate with me when this is too challenging, not challenging enough, to make sure that you're getting what you need to get to your goals and smiling while you're doing it. So yeah, that's with all of the one-on-one coaching. The group coaching is a little bit different because that's just kind of like a general fitness. Everybody's just trying to get generally more fit, more healthy, more happy. So that one we won't go super in depth about all of our goals, but we'll still mention it in there too.
Great. So I think that wraps up goal setting, but if they want to do more goal setting with you, where do they go?
So yeah, if you want to just chat about goal setting, you've maybe thought that you had a goal and now that you're thinking, oh, I don't know my why, how do I figure out my why? Or you just want to kind of learn a little bit more, you can always set up a coaching call on the website, www.fitucoaching.com. And then there'll be a contact spot where you can fill out your name and email, and we can set up a time to chat. We can go in depth and then kind of help you figure out what your why is, get you set on the right path that you need to be on, and hopefully answer those questions that you have. So yeah, like I said, www.fitucoaching.com, or you can always send me a message on Instagram, fitu_coaching, Facebook, maybe leave a comment on this depending on how you're listening to it. And yeah, we'll get in touch and hopefully answer those questions for you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.